The sandwich was actually good today. Ambassador David Reed had eaten at the Galactic Council Station for 3 years, and the food ranged from acceptable to criminal. But today, somehow, the kitchen had figured out how to make bread that did not taste like cardboard mixed with regret. He was sitting alone in the small human delegation office, feet up on his desk, enjoying this small victory when his assistant burst through the door. "Sir, we have a situation." David looked at his sandwich, then at his assistant, then back at his sandwich. "How bad?" "Two empires just declared war on us. At the same time, in the main assembly hall. They are waiting for your response." David took another bite, chewed slowly, swallowed. "Which two?" "The Veratt Dominion and the Krull sovereignty." "Ah." David set down his sandwich with genuine sadness. "Those two. They hate each other almost as much as they hate everyone else." "Sir, they are literally waiting. The entire council is watching." David stood, brushed crumbs off his suit, and walked toward the assembly hall. His assistant hurried behind him, talking quickly about protocol and proper responses and the 17 different ways this could end in humanity's extinction. David was not listening. He was thinking about the sandwich and wondering if it would still be good when he got back. The assembly hall was chaos wrapped in architecture. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled the circular chamber, all of them staring at the center stage where two very angry delegations stood beneath their floating war declarations. The Veratt were tall and scaled, their skin shifting colors with their emotions. Right now, they were deep purple, which meant fury. Their high commander, a massive warrior named Sullen, had his ceremonial blade already drawn. The Krull were shorter but wider, their bodies covered in dense gray plates. Their Archon, a female named Brennies, stood with her forearms crossed. Her species did not show emotion on their faces, but her posture radiated contempt. Between them floated the holographic declarations. Lots of fancy language about honor and insult and ancient rites. David had seen dozens of these. They all sounded the same, that he walked to the human podium, aware that every eye in the chamber was on him. The Veratt and Krull had been waiting for humanity's representative to arrive so they could properly deliver their threats. "Ambassador Reed," Sullen boomed, his voice echoing through the hall. "The Veratt Dominion has declared sacred war upon your species. Your colony in the Ardent System has insulted our honor by refusing to surrender the mining rights that are ours by ancient claim. You have 30 cycles to evacuate your people before we reduce that world to ash." Before David could respond, Brennies stepped forward. "And the Krull sovereignty declares that humanity's trade agreement with the Veratt was itself an act of war. You have chosen sides in a conflict that predates your species. You will suffer the consequences. We also declare war on the Krull," Sullen added. "And we on the Veratt," Brennies replied. The chamber buzzed with fear and excitement. Three-way wars were rare. Three-way wars involving humans, who had only been in space for 2 centuries, were unprecedented. David looked at both delegations. He looked at the floating war declarations with their dramatic language and official seals. He looked at the thousands of watching representatives. Then he checked his watch. "Just to be clear," he said, his voice calm and carrying easily through the silent hall. "You want to do this now or after lunch?" The silence that followed was so complete that David could hear the environmental systems humming to sullen scales flushed even darker. "You mock us." "Not all," David said. "I'm asking a genuine question. If we're going to discuss the end of 3 civilizations, I would like to know if I have time to finish my sandwich first. The kitchen finally got the bread right today, and I would hate to waste it." Brennies made a sound that might have been disbelief. "You speak of food while 2 empires threaten your extinction. I speak of food because I'm hungry. Hungry people make bad decisions. That is true for humans, and I suspect it is true for Veratt and Krull as well." David looked between them. "When did either of you last eat?" Neither answered, which was answer enough. "The cafeteria on Deck 7 makes an acceptable protein blend for Veratt digestion, and they have mineral supplements that Krull find tolerable. I was going to eat alone, but I would welcome company." He stepped down from the podium. "We can discuss extinction after. Wars tend to go better on a full stomach." He walked toward the exit. Behind him, the assembly hall erupted in confused murmuring. This was not how species responded to war declarations. This was not protocol. This was not sane. David did not look back. He simply walked, calm and steady, toward Deck 7. He was halfway there when he heard footsteps behind him. Heavy ones. Multiple sets. He smiled, but did not turn around. The noodle place gets crowded around midday, he called back. We should hurry if we want a good table. The footsteps continued following him. Sometimes, David thought, the most powerful thing you could do was refuse to play the game everyone expected. Sometimes the best response to a declaration of war was to ask about lunch. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, your enemies would be curious enough to join you. The Deck 7 cafeteria was about to host the strangest peace negotiation in galactic history. But first, David was going to finish his sandwich. 17 species had tried to conquer the galaxy through military force. None had succeeded, but no one had ever tried to conquer it through noodles. David Reed sat at a round table in the Deck 7 cafeteria, surrounded by 2 delegations that wanted him dead. The Veratt High Commander Sullen sat to his left, still purple with barely contained rage. The Krull Archon Brennies sat to his right, her 4 arms folded tight against her plated chest. Neither had spoken since sitting down. Neither seemed to know why they had followed him here, David understood. Confusion was a powerful tool. When someone does something completely unexpected, you follow them just to see what happens next. The protein blend here is decent, David said, waving at a server. Not as good as real Veratt cuisine, I imagine, but edible. And for the Krull, they have mineral-enriched water that should meet your nutritional needs. Sullen's scales flickered. You know our dietary requirements? I know the dietary requirements of 47 species represented on this station. It seemed polite to learn. David smiled. Plus, it helps avoid accidentally poisoning anyone at dinner parties. The server arrived, a nervous young being from a species David could not identify. He ordered for the table without asking permission. The server fled. This is absurd, Brenny said. Her voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. We declared war. You invited us to lunch. This is not how civilizations behave. Maybe that is the problem, David replied. Maybe civilizations have been behaving the same way for so long that they forgot there were other options. The food arrived quickly. The kitchen had clearly been warned that important guests were present. David's sandwich looked even better than the one he had left behind. The Veratt protein blend was steaming. The Krull mineral water glowed faintly blue. David bit into his sandwich. He chewed. He swallowed. He did not speak. The silence stretched. Finally, Sullen grabbed his food and began eating. Then Brennies reached for her water. The tension did not disappear, but it shifted into something less explosive. The Ardent system, David said after a few minutes, has 3 planets with significant mineral deposits. Your species have been fighting over those deposits for 600 years. The rights are ours by ancient claim, Sullen said. The ancient claim is disputed, Brennies countered. The Krull were mining that region before the Veratt even achieved space flight. Lies. History. David held up his hand. Both claims are probably legitimate based on your own legal systems. That is not the point. The point is that while you have been fighting over who owns the system, neither of you has actually been mining it properly. The deposits remain mostly untouched because every time one side tries to extract resources, the other side attacks. Both delegations went quiet. Humanity's colony in the Ardent system has extracted more minerals in 3 years than either of your empires have in 6 centuries. Not because we are better miners, because we are actually mining instead of fighting about mining. Sullen's scales shifted to a lighter shade. Less fury, more confusion. You admit that you have stolen what belongs to us. I admit that we have used what you were wasting. There is a difference. David set down his sandwich. There is enough in that system for all 3 of our species. More than enough. The only reason there is not enough is because you keep destroying each other's operations. You suggest we share? Brennies made that sound of disbelief again. The Krull do not share. We control. How is that working out for you? The question hung in the air. Brennies did not answer. I have read your economic reports, David continued. Both of your empires are struggling. The Veratt have been expanding rapidly because your homeworld is depleting. The Krull have been tightening your grip on existing territory because you fear losing what you have. Both strategies are failing. You know nothing of our situation, Sullen said, but his voice had lost its edge. I know that neither of you can afford a three-way war. I know that your war declarations today were bluffs meant to intimidate humanity into giving up our colony. I know that you each expected us to back down so you could focus on fighting each other. David picked up his sandwich again. I know that the last thing either of you expected was to be eating lunch together. The cafeteria around them continued its normal business. Other species ate and talked and laughed, unaware that three civilizations were negotiating survival over noodles and mineral water. What do you want? Bernice asked. Humans always want something. I want to not die, David said simply. I want my species to survive. I want to keep eating sandwiches that actually taste good. And I think the best way to achieve all of that is to help both of you get what you actually need. And what do we actually need? Sullen asked. The Veratt need resources and new territory because your homeworld is dying. The Krull need economic stability and trading partners because your isolation strategy is strangling your growth. David looked between them. You both need things the other can provide. And you both need things humanity can provide. The only obstacle is pride. The word landed like a physical blow. We could destroy your species, Bernice said quietly. Even without war with each other, either empire could crush humanity. You could try, David agreed, but would cost you, and you would gain nothing but revenge. Whereas if you talk to us, if you work with us, you might actually solve your problems. He finished his sandwich. I'm not asking you to trust us. I'm asking you to consider that there might be a better option than war. Sullen and Bernice looked at each other. For the first time, they were not looking with hatred. They were looking with uncertainty. Uncertainty was progress. This lunch, Sullen said slowly, it changes nothing officially. Officially, no, David agreed. But unofficially, you are both still here. You are both still listening. And neither of you has killed me yet. He smiled. I consider that a successful meal. He stood up. I have a meeting in an hour, but I would very much like to continue this conversation. Perhaps dinner? I know a place that serves food all three of us can eat. He walked away before they could respond. Behind him, two empires sat in confused silence, wondering what had just happened. David smiled. That was exactly where he wanted them. The private diplomatic chamber was designed to make visitors feel small. High ceilings, dark walls, a single chair for the guest, positioned beneath spotlights that made every movement visible. The Veratt had built it to intimidate. David Reed sat in that chair and felt nothing but tired. It had been a long day. High Commander Sullen stood in the shadows, his scales now a neutral gray. The anger had faded. Something more dangerous had taken its place. Curiosity. I requested this meeting because I do not understand you, Sullen said. My advisors say humans are weak, young, foolish. They say your species should be easy to manipulate and easier to conquer. Your advisors sound confident. They were confident. After today, they are confused. Sullen stepped forward into the light. I am confused. You faced two war declarations and asked about lunch. Either you are insane or you know something we do not. David leaned back in his chair. Can I tell you a story? A story? Humans like stories. It is how we make sense of things. Will you listen? Sullen hesitated, then nodded. He settled onto a bench across from David, his massive frame making the furniture look fragile. Humans have been killing each other for our entire history, David began. Long before we reached space, we fought. Over land, over resources, over ideas, over things so small that we forgot what started the wars before they ended. All species fight. Yes, but humans became very good at it. We developed weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. We created poisons that could kill millions. We built machines designed only for death. David's voice stayed calm, but his eyes had grown distant. We came very close to destroying ourselves. Many times, Sullen's scales flickered with interest. Yet you survived. We survived because we learned. Slowly, painfully, we learned that war was easy to start and hard to stop. We learned that the winners often lost as much as the losers. We learned that the only way to truly end a conflict was to address what caused it. David focused back on Sullen. We became good at diplomacy because we were so catastrophically bad at war. You speak of war as if it is a failure. It is. War is what happens when everything else has failed. When communication fails. When trust fails. When imagination fails. David paused. I lost my brother to a war. A border conflict over a strip of land, so small you could walk across it in an hour. Sullen went still. Among the Veratt, family loss was sacred ground. He was a soldier. A good one. He believed he was fighting for something important. He died believing that. David's voice did not waver. 6 months later, both sides signed a treaty. The border ended up exactly where it had been before the fighting started. Nothing changed, except my brother was gone, and so were thousands of others on both sides. Why do you tell me this? Because I see the same pattern with your people. You fight because you feel you must, because honor demands it, because backing down seems impossible. David leaned forward. But your homeworld is dying, Commander. I know the reports. Your sun is destabilizing. Within 2 centuries, your world will be uninhabitable. Sullen's scales flashed dark. How do you know this? Because humanity has been watching. Not to exploit, to understand. We have been developing terraforming technology that might help you. We have been identifying worlds that could serve as new Veratt homes. David spread his hands. We have been preparing to offer assistance. But we were waiting for the right moment. Why would you help us? We declared war on you. You declared war because you are desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. We understand this better than most. David stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. Humanity learned something in our centuries of killing each other. We learned that the enemy you help today becomes the ally you need tomorrow. We learned that mercy is not weakness. We learned that species survive together or die alone. Sullen was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than David had ever heard it. The Dominion has always believed that strength comes from conquest, from taking what others have, from forcing submission. And where has that belief brought you? To a dying world and endless wars with neighbors who hate you. David turned back to face him. What if strength could come from something else? What if it could come from building instead of destroying? That is not the Veratt way. It was not the human way either. We changed. We had to. David returned to his chair. I'm not asking you to change overnight. I am asking you to consider that there might be another path. One where your people survive not by conquering, but by cooperating. Sullen stood. His full height was impressive, nearly twice David's size. But for the first time, he did not seem like a warrior preparing for battle. He seemed like a leader carrying an impossible weight. If I took this to my council, they would call me weak. They would say I've been tricked by a soft species that knows nothing of honor. What would you say? Sullen looked at David for a long time. I would say that I met a human who understood something my people have forgotten. That true strength is not found in destroying your enemies. It is found in having the courage to make them into something else. And what is that? Allies. Sullen turned toward the door. I will not promise anything, but I will think on what you have said, and I will return for that dinner you mentioned. He left without another word. David sat alone in the interrogation chamber, beneath the harsh lights designed to make visitors feel small. He felt many things. Small was not one of them. Point one down. One ago, the Krull would be harder. But David had faced impossible odds before. He checked his watch. There was still time to eat before the next crisis. There was always time to eat. It was amazing how much you could accomplish when you refused to skip meals. The invitation came wrapped in threat. Archon Brennys requested Ambassador Reed's presence aboard the Krull flagship. The word requested was doing heavy lifting in that sentence. David went anyway. His security team begged him not to. His assistant drafted 17 different excuses he could use. He ignored all of them and walked onto the Krull shuttle with nothing but a data pad and a calm smile. The flagship was called the Absolute Truth. The Krull had no sense of irony. Armed guards escorted David through corridors made of dark metal. The ship was designed for efficiency, not comfort. Every surface was functional. Every light served a purpose. There was no decoration, no art, no softness anywhere. They brought him to a chamber at the heart of the ship. The moment he stepped inside, a containment field activated around him. Blue energy crackled along his skin. Not painful, but definitely uncomfortable. Archon Brenny sat on a raised platform, looking down at him. Her forearms rested on the arms of her chair. Her gray-plated face showed nothing. Ambassador Reed, thank you for accepting my invitation. Thank you for having me. Though the energy cage feels a bit excessive, it is for your safety. The crew is angry. They wanted to execute you the moment you came aboard. This field protects you from them. How thoughtful. Brenny's leaned forward slightly. You impressed the Veratt. Commander Sullen speaks of you with something approaching respect. This concerns me. Why? Because the Veratt are fools who can be manipulated with appeals to honor and emotion. The Krull are not. We see patterns. We analyze. We predict. One of her hands gestured, and a holographic display appeared between them. This is human expansion over the past 2 centuries. The display showed a map of known space, with human colonies marked in blue. There were many, more than David had expected Brenny's to know about. You spread quietly, Brenny's continued. You do not conquer. You do not threaten. You simply appear, establish trade, make yourselves useful, and then you are everywhere. In 2 more centuries, at current rates, humanity will be integrated into the economy of every major species. You will not control the galaxy through force. You will control it because everyone needs you. David said nothing. This is a strategy, a long strategy. Generations of humans working toward a single goal of domination through dependency. Brenny stood. I see you, Ambassador. I see what your species is doing. And what exactly do you think we are doing? Making yourselves impossible to remove, like a parasite that becomes necessary for survival. David nodded slowly. That is one way to see it. Can I offer another interpretation? You could try. Humans spread because we are curious. We trade because we find it more profitable than fighting. We make ourselves useful because that is how we survive. We are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest. We are not the longest lived or the most advanced. David met her gaze through the crackling energy. We survive by being helpful, by making friends instead of enemies, by finding ways to add value wherever we go. A pretty story, a true one. Humanity does not have a secret master plan for galactic domination. We have billions of individuals making billions of small decisions about how to live their lives. Some of those individuals are greedy. Some are kind. Most are just trying to get through the day. David shrugged, the field limiting his movement. What you see as a strategy is really just the sum of human nature. We cooperate. It is what we do. Brenny's was quiet for a long moment. The Krull do not cooperate. We dominate. We control. This has kept us strong for 12,000 years. Has it? Your economy has been stagnant for 3 centuries. Your birth rates are declining. Your allies fear you more than they trust you. David tilted his head. How is domination working out for your species? The Archon's plated face revealed nothing, but her silence spoke volumes. The Krull are a matriarchal society, David continued. You rose to power by being the best at resource management and strategic thinking. Your females led because they were pragmatic, because they made decisions based on what worked, not on pride or tradition. You know our history. I know that the Krull who built your empire would look at its current state and ask what went wrong. They would see a society so focused on control that it has forgotten how to grow. Brenny's descended from her platform. She walked around the containment field, studying David from every angle. You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both. Most humans are. If I killed you now, it would mean war with your species. Yes, and the Veratt would side with us. And several other species would as well. And the Krull would win some battles, maybe even many battles, but you would lose the war. Not because humans are strong, but because we have something your species has forgotten. And what is that? Friends. We have friends. Not allies who fear us. Not servants who obey us. Friends who actually want to see us succeed. David pressed against the field, bringing himself as close to Brenny's as possible. I would like the Krull to be our friends too. But friendship requires trust. Trust requires risk. Are you willing to risk something, Archon? What kind of risk? Come to one of our colonies. See how we live. See how we work with other species. Make your judgment based on observation, not analysis. David smiled. I promise not to put you in an energy cage. We will even feed you. Bernice stared at him. David could not read her expression because her species did not have readable expressions. But he could read her posture. She was thinking, calculating, weighing options. If this is a trap, human, your species will burn. David had heard those words before. Different aliens, same threat. He gave the same answer he always gave. If this is a trap, we deserve to burn. But it is not a trap. It is an invitation. He stepped back from the field. There is a difference. Bernice raised one of her hands. The containment field disappeared. David resisted the urge to rub his arms where the energy had tingled. I will consider your invitation, Bernice said, and I will attend your dinner with Commander Sullen. But know this, Ambassador. I am watching. I will be watching everything your species does. The moment I see deception, negotiations end. Fair enough. David straightened his suit. I look forward to proving you wrong. He walked out of the chamber, past the angry guards, back through the efficient corridors. The shuttle ride back to the station was quiet. David allowed himself to relax slightly. The hard part was over. Now came the harder part. Actually delivering on his promises. He hoped the colony he had in mind was ready for visitors. It was time to show two empires what humanity really looked like. New Helsinki was not supposed to impress anyone. It was a mining colony on a cold world at the edge of mapped space. The buildings were practical. The streets were muddy. The weather was terrible 8 months out of 12. But when two delegations of alien dignitaries stepped off their ships and looked around, they saw something that stopped them cold. A Veratt family walked past, scales flashing greeting colors of their neighbors. A Krull merchant argued prices with a human vendor, both of them laughing at some shared joke. Children of 6 different species played together in a courtyard, their games incomprehensible to adults, but making perfect sense to them. High Commander Sullen stood frozen, watching a young Veratt male carry supplies alongside a human woman. They were working together, not as master and servant, as equals. This is not possible, he said. And yet here it is, David replied. Archon Bernice had brought recording devices. Her aides were documenting everything. The Krull way was to analyze, to study, to find a flaw in what they were seeing. They had been on the colony for 3 hours and had not found one yet. David led them through the settlement, answering questions when asked, but mostly staying quiet. He wanted them to see for themselves. Words could be deception. Reality was harder to fake. They visited a school where children learned 3 languages because that was the minimum needed to speak to everyone in the colony. They visited a hospital where doctors of 4 species worked side by side. They visited a market where trade happened without guards or weapons or tension. Sullen pulled aside a Veratt elder who had lived on the colony for 15 years. David watched from a distance as they spoke. The elder's scales shifted through colors David could not read, but Sullen's reaction was clear. Surprise. Disbelief. Then, something softer. Bernice interviewed a young Krull female who ran a trading company with human partners. The Archon's questions were sharp. The young female's answers were sharper. She had left Krull space because she wanted to build something, not just control something. She had found that possibility here. How? Bernice asked David as they walked away from the interview. How do you make different species work together without one dominating the others? We do not make them do anything. We invite them. We create conditions where cooperation is more rewarding than competition. And then we get out of the way. That cannot be enough. It is not. There are conflicts, arguments, sometimes fights. People are people regardless of species. David stopped walking and faced her directly. The difference is how we handle those conflicts. We talk. We negotiate. We find solutions that everyone can live with. And when that fails, we keep talking until it works. That sounds exhausting. It is. But it is less exhausting than war. The day continued. More tours. More conversations. More evidence that what should not work was working perfectly well. Then the accident happened that a construction platform collapsed in the industrial district. Workers were trapped. The alarm went out across the colony. David watched as the response unfolded. Human emergency teams arrived first, but they were quickly joined by others. Veratt workers used their strength to lift debris. Krull engineers coordinated the rescue effort with their superior organizational skills. A species David could not identify provided medical support. No one argued about who was in charge. No one waited for permission. They simply worked together because people were in danger, and that was what mattered. That a Veratt child had been on the platform. A visitor from one of the Dominion worlds, here with her family to see relatives. She was trapped beneath twisted metal, her scales pale with fear and pain. Sullen moved toward the rescue effort, but David held him back. Watch! A human doctor reached the child first. Behind her came a Krull surgeon carrying equipment. Together, they worked to stabilize the girl while the rescue teams cleared the debris. A Veratt medic arrived with species-specific supplies. The three medical professionals did not speak the same language, but they did not need to. They understood each other. The child was freed 20 minutes later, injured but alive. Her parents rushed forward, wrapping around her with scales, flashing relief and gratitude. The human doctor stepped back, smiling. The Krull surgeon nodded once. The Veratt medic clasped hands with both of them. The sullen scales had shifted to a color David had never seen before. They saved her. All of them together. Yes. A Krull helped save a Veratt child. On a human colony. Yes. Brenny stood nearby, her four arms hanging loose at her sides. Her recording devices had captured everything, but she was not looking at them. She was looking at the crowd of mixed species, all of them talking and laughing and celebrating the rescue together. This is what you offer, she said quietly. This is what humanity wants to build. This is what we have already built. In one small place, with limited resources and no support from the rest of the galaxy. David gestured at the colony around them. Imagine what we could build together. All of us. If we stopped fighting long enough to try. Sullen and Brennies looked at each other. For a moment, they were not High Commander and Archon. They were not representatives of ancient enemies. They were two people who had just witnessed something neither had believed possible. This changes nothing officially, Sullen said. The words were familiar, but his tone had changed. Officially, no, David agreed. But we both know that is not true. The child's family approached them. The father spoke to Sullen in rapid Veratt, too fast for David to follow. But he saw the commander's scales brighten. He saw the warrior bow his head to the human doctor who had saved a stranger's daughter. Brenny spoke quietly with the Krull surgeon who had assisted. Whatever was said made the Archon go still. David waited. We will return to the station, Brennies finally said. We have much to discuss with our governments. I understand. You understand nothing. Brennies turned to face him. But you have shown us something we did not expect. That is worth more than understanding. They left that evening. The colony returned to normal. Workers repaired the damaged platform. Children resumed their games. Life continued. David stayed behind for one more day. He wanted to remember this place. To remember what was possible. The hardest part was still ahead. But for the first time, he allowed himself to hope. Maybe lunch really could change everything. 1 week after two empires declared war, the Grand Assembly Hall was full again. Every representative from every species had come to witness what they expected to be the beginning of the end. Instead, they watched something impossible. High Commander Sullen of the Veratt Dominion stood at the central podium. His scales were calm blue, the color of formal declaration. Behind him, his delegation waited in perfect formation. The Veratt Dominion formally withdraws its declaration of war against humanity, he announced. His voice carried through the silent hall. Furthermore, we request humanitarian assistance. Our homeworld faces an extinction-level crisis. Our sun is dying. We have too much pride to survive alone. The chamber erupted in whispers. The Veratt asking for help was unprecedented. The Veratt admitting weakness was unthinkable. Sullen continued. We have been shown another way. A better way. We choose to try it. He stepped back. Archon Brennies took his place. The Krull sovereignty also withdraws its declaration of war. Her voice was flat, but her posture had changed. Less rigid, less defensive. We have analyzed the situation extensively. We have concluded that cooperation offers better long-term outcomes than conflict. Therefore, we propose a new trade coalition. Open membership, equal participation, share benefits, more whispers. The Krull proposing equality was as shocking as the Veratt requesting help. David Reed walked to the podium. He looked smaller than the others, weaker, more vulnerable, but he stood there without fear. Humanity accepts both proposals, and we offer something in return. He activated a holographic display showing technical specifications, terraforming technology, agricultural systems, medical advances, transportation networks. We will share everything we have, every piece of knowledge, every tool, every technique. David looked out at the thousands of watching faces. But there is one condition. Anyone who benefits from this sharing must agree to share with others in turn. Not just with us, with everyone who needs it. A chain, someone called out. You are creating a chain of obligation. I am creating a chain of help. There is a difference. David shut down the display. For too long, the galaxy has operated on a simple principle. Take what you can, hold what you have, destroy what threatens you. That principle has brought us endless wars and dying worlds and species that fear their neighbors more than they fear extinction. He paused. The hall was silent. Humanity offers a different principle. Help who you can, share what you have, build something that lasts. We are not strong enough to force anyone to accept this. We are not wise enough to claim we have all the answers. But we have seen what happens when species work together instead of against each other. We have seen it work. And if it fails, someone asked. David could not see who. Then it fails. And we try something else. And we keep trying until we find something that works. Because the alternative is giving up, and humanity does not know how to do that. One by one, other delegations began to stand. A small species from the outer systems announced their support. Then another. Then 3 more. Representatives who had been silent for centuries spoke up. Voices that had only ever voted for war now voted for something else that IT took hours. There were arguments, objections, heated debates about details and logistics and ancient grudges. But the momentum was building. Species that had never agreed on anything agreed on this. By the end of the day, the framework for a new galactic coalition existed. It was fragile. It was imperfect. It would face challenges that no one could predict, but it existed. That was enough for now. Months passed. David Reed sat at his usual table in the Deck 7 cafeteria. The same sandwich, the same seat. Some things never changed. What had changed was his lunch companions. Sullen sat to his left, his scales relaxed in content. The first terraforming ships had reached the Veratt homeworld. Early results were promising. There was hope now, where there had been only despair. Brenny sat to his right, her 4 hands busy with multiple data pads. The new trade coalition was growing faster than anyone had expected. The Krull economy had already improved. Her analysts were struggling to keep up with the positive trends. They met like this every week now. 3 representatives of 3 species, sharing a meal and discussing the future. It had become tradition. The reports from the Ardent system are excellent, Brenny said. Mining efficiency has increased by 40% since we stopped fighting over it. The Veratt miners and Krull engineers work well together, Sullen added. I would not have believed it possible. Amazing what happens when you stop trying to kill each other, David said. Sullen made a sound that might have been laughter. His species did not laugh exactly, but they had something close. In aid rushed into the cafeteria. Young, nervous, clearly carrying bad news. Ambassador Reed, we have a situation. David looked at his sandwich, then at the aide, then back at his sandwich. How bad? Another empire has declared war on the coalition. The Threll hegemony. They say we are a threat to the natural order. David sighed. He checked his watch. Sullen's crest rose in what David now recognized as amusement. Brenny's made a low rumbling sound that served as Krull laughter. All 3 of them spoke at the same time. Now or after lunch? The aide looked confused. David just smiled. Some things changed. Something stayed the same. And lunch, as always, came first. It was amazing how much you could accomplish when you refused to skip meals. It was even more amazing what you could accomplish when you invited your enemies to join you. the galaxy was not saved. Not yet. Maybe not ever completely. There would always be another crisis, another threat, another empire that thought war was easier than talking. But there would also always be a table somewhere, with seats for everyone, and food that was surprisingly good. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.